Hey everybody, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share with you guys a little bit of mixed media. Now, this is a little shadow box that I started at the Scrapbook Expo a couple of days ago, and I thought I would come on and share with you guys how I got this far and finish up this shadow box project. This is also going to be a video response to Archana Joshi's mixed media giveaway. This is a giveaway that's limited to just the US, but she is going to be doing other giveaways that will include international subbies as well. But Archana is super talented. She has great process videos and lots of kind of mixed media and flower making tutorials on her channel. So if you don't know Archana, please go check her out. For this canvas, or actually shadow box, it started off as a canvas. Isn't that cool? And all I did was I put some white gesso along the wooded areas and then covered it with some Tim Holtz tissue paper and a liner inside of Canson or Strathmore, I can't remember, watercolor paper that was sprayed, stenciled, and I added a little tag and a little picture of my sweet biscuit, some chipboard pieces. This was actually also covered with gesso before applying some color to it. These are paints and sprays from Art Anthology, but you could use any kind of color, acrylic or watercolor even. And then I added some little tiny seed beads just for some texture and interest, some little white seed beads, and then micro beads in silver. So that's really as far as I've gotten so far. And the adhesive that I'm using is this Beacon 3-in-1, which I am loving. It dries relatively quickly, but there is a little bit of wet time, so you can move things around if you like. And what I thought I would do, this area here has a little bit of a blank spot, so I thought I'd take some Deco Art Dimensional Effects. This is paintable texture paste, and it's an opaque white. And I thought I'd just use my finger. I'm not a big messy crafter, but I thought for this piece, I could step out of my comfort zone a little bit and just do like a little heart, I'm thinking. And it's just going to be totally loose. And what I like about texture paste is that it's just that. It adds a little bit of texture. And it's super forgiving, right? Because you can kind of wipe it off while it's still wet, where you don't want it, and leave it on where you do. Now, this texture paste that I'm using from Deco Arts is actually also paintable. So that means you can mix acrylic paint with it, or you can actually paint over top after it's been dried. But I think I want to keep this more clean. There's already so much color going on in the background that I'm just going to leave it plain white. And when it fully dries, it's actually going to dry a little bit more like a cream color than white. You also see me pulling out here baby wipes because, as I mentioned, I really don't like being messy while I'm crafting, so I'm wiping my fingers as I go, and I'm going to put that away for now. And now I decided I'm going to add some metal pieces and some flowers, and I'm kind of just dry fitting things. Now you see me taking a paintbrush and I'm coiling the little metal stem of the paper flower so that it has a nice little spring look. Ooh, and I think I'm switching out that flower at the top of the smaller metal flower with a slightly bigger paper flower. And all these just paper flowers are from my stash. I can't remember where they're all from, but they are all plain white flowers. And I'm using that 3-in-1 glue to place the metal filigree pieces. These are all kind of florally or medallion-like, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just kind of placing them now. And what's great about this 3-in-1 is that it is still a little bit wet. It's tacky, so it kind of stays in place, but there's still a lot of forgiveness to it, so you can move things around if you need to. As you can see there, I layered just some flower petals, like a 4-petal flower, and then another fully made flower over top. And now I decided I think I need a little more fullness in this flower cluster. So I'm taking some paper leaves, and these are just some pale leaves that I had in my stash, and I thought adding some pale ones rather than dark green ones, which I think are easier to find, and I have those in my stash too, but I wanted to keep this kind of pale along the edges because I wanted the tissue paper images to still be more of a focal point, as well as obviously the picture of Biscuit. And that's the best thing about this 3-in-1 glue. You can lift things off and then put things back down if you didn't get the order of your placement of your materials down just the way you want it. And now I decided I want another metal piece, another flower cluster, maybe a smaller one to the right. And I'm going to try and create a, following the rule of threes. I am going to be adding flowers in kind of 3 areas on this shadow box, as well as odd numbers of flowers in each cluster. So you see me there kind of fiddling around a little bit, little flower petals that I've added, and then a smaller flower over top of that little medallion on the right. This is a slightly bigger flower, and I've decided I'm going to add this to the picture of Biscuit and maybe put it right toward the upper right of the picture. So it kind of connects where those seed beads are. It also connects to her picture. It almost looks like there's a flower in her hair, and I'm going to add a small flower up on that upper left cluster. And you see me moving back and forth because I'm trying to figure out kind of what would create a nice balance. I'm going to add a teeny tiny paper flower to the cluster on the right. I'm fiddling with that extra layer of flower petals, that 5-petal flower, and seeing if I should layer there or up at the top. Say that's 3-in-1 glue being great, letting me continue to fiddle around with these flowers without losing, paper or having it fixed completely when I first put something down. It's great for mixed media because it is so forgiving and allows you to have that play time. Now I've decided I'm going to add maybe to the upper left cluster more flowers. I wanted to give that one an odd number, so I'm going to be adding 5 flowers, but making that considerably bigger than the other clusters, just because I want to have not everything totally matched, but I want to have a nice balance. So I'm adding kind of a smaller but not teeny tiny flower to the lower end of that cluster, and maybe a teeny tiny flower to the right of that cluster. Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to place that. And I'm going to add the glue there. And I tried the little crystal flower there, and I've decided no, it doesn't show up enough for me over top of all of that text on the frame. So now, I think I like that. I like the 5-petal flower and then the crystal flower in the center, and I like it in that lower left. So it's kind of forming a triangle, the flower clusters. So I have that as the main focal point in the lower cluster. I'm adding a teeny tiny flower to the right of that, just above. And then I'm going to try and connect with that tiny flower to the left of the key as well. Now I've decided all along the edge, the paper that was cut down, the watercolor paper that lines the back of this canvas, was cut a little bit bigger than the opening, but I didn't slide it in completely, so I need to cover that seam, that edge where the paper doesn't quite fit underneath the frame, the shadow box edge. So I've decided to put in a strand of pearls, and I'm gluing that in with the 3-in-1 glue and just placing it, tucking it in, squeezing a little bit into those corners, trying to make sure that I get a good adherence right to the edge of where the paper and the frame meet. And it's working really well. The glue gets a little bit tacky, and so it kind of holds it in place unless you intentionally rip it out. And I'm getting the pearl strand all around the inside edge of this shadow box. Now I'm clipping off the edge, and as you can see, I need to move that flower that I had placed in the lower left, and that glue lets you do that. The last finishing touch I'm going to add are just some Nouveau glitter dots. And I'm adding some just on the frame to kind of extend the clusters a little bit, just to add a little bit of sparkle. I hope you enjoyed this process video, or a partial process video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day.